A few years back, on a flight from Orlando to Boston, a passenger got so drunk mid-flight that he started fiddling with the emergency exit door. Alarm went off. Two men had to sit on either side of him for the rest of the flight just to keep him calm. Police were waiting at the gate. Nobody thinks one or two drinks should end with police at the gate. So either this guy has never touched alcohol in his life, or something about being in the sky was lying to his brain. Turns out it's the second one. And the answer is so strange that when scientists finally tested it properly, in a lab, with real blood draws, the results surprised even them. This is why you get drunk faster on a plane. And once you know why, you'll never look at that tiny in-flight wine bottle the same way again. You've probably felt a smaller version of this yourself. One drink on a flight, and you're warm, giggly, asleep before the seatbelt sign even switches off. Flight attendants have an actual name for it: lightweights at altitude. Frequent flyers pass down an unofficial two-drink rule like folklore, and airlines have cut people off after a single glass of wine, something that basically never happens at a bar on the ground, where you'd need 3 or 4 before the bartender even looked twice. So here's the obvious question: does alcohol actually hit your blood faster up there? More of it, absorbed quicker, somehow slipping past your liver before it can do its job? You'd assume yes. Every symptom points that way. That's the whole story, right? Wrong. And this is where it gets interesting. When researchers actually measured this, real blood alcohol tests on real passengers in altitude chambers built to simulate a cabin at cruising height, the number barely moved. Blood alcohol concentration on a plane came out close to what it would be on solid ground. Not some dramatic spike. Close enough that, on paper, it barely explains anything you've just heard. So if the alcohol in your blood isn't rising any faster, what turned one beer into a police escort at the gate? The answer has almost nothing to do with the drink. It has to do with what's already happening to your body before the drink even arrives. Two things, both invisible, both working against you from the second the cabin door closes. Here's the first one. Mechanism 1. Cabin pressure. Commercial planes cruise at 35,000 feet. But the cabin isn't pressurized to sea level. That would put too much stress on the aircraft's structure over thousands of flights. Instead, it's pressurized to feel like somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 feet of elevation. To your body, that's the same as being dropped at the base camp of a serious mountain, with 0 time to acclimatize. At that altitude, less oxygen makes it into your bloodstream. Your oxygen saturation, usually sitting around 97 to 99%, can quietly slide down to 90 to 94% mid-flight. Doesn't sound dramatic. Your brain disagrees completely. It's one of the most oxygen-hungry organs in your entire body, and it notices small drops almost immediately. Doctors call this mild hypoxia. And here's a detail that should genuinely unsettle you. Pilots train for a more extreme version of exactly this, breathing thinned air in simulators, specifically because the early symptoms are so easy to miss. Some describe feeling unusually cheerful right before their actual performance starts collapsing. That's terrifying in a cockpit. It's quietly happening in your economy seat too. Now read the actual symptom list. Slower reaction time, poor coordination, a foggy head, a floaty, lightheaded feeling. Say that list out loud to a stranger without mentioning altitude, and they'll assume you're describing being drunk. You'd be right, except none of it came from alcohol. It came from the air. Quick aside, because people always ask this once they hear the word hypoxia. No, this isn't the same emergency the oxygen masks drop for. Those exist for a sudden, severe loss of cabin pressure, a genuinely rare and dangerous event. What we're talking about here is the mild, completely normal, every single flight version, quietly built into how commercial aviation works by design. It's not a malfunction, it's just physics running in the background of every flight you've ever taken, whether you noticed it or not. Mechanism 2. Dehydration. Now stack the second mechanism directly on top of the first. Cabin air is drier than most deserts on this planet, often under 20% humidity. Most deserts, on their driest recorded days, still beat that number. You're losing moisture just breathing that air before you've touched a single drink. Then alcohol enters the picture, And alcohol is a diuretic. It makes you lose fluid faster than you take it in. So now you're dehydrating from two directions simultaneously. The dry air pulling water out passively, the alcohol pushing it out actively. Same body, two separate systems, both draining you at once. And here's the part that flips this from mildly annoying to actually compounding the problem. Dehydration slows down your liver, the exact organ responsible for breaking alcohol down. Less water means slower enzymes, which means the alcohol already in your system sticks around longer than it normally would. Dehydration doesn't just feel like being drunk. It physically extends how long the real thing lasts in your blood. There's a knock-on effect most people never think about too. Dehydration also thickens your blood slightly and worsens circulation in a seated position over several hours. Part of the same broader reason, long flights carry a small, increased risk of blood clots. That's not the main story here, but it's a reminder that your body isn't dealing with one isolated problem at altitude. It's dealing with several small ones, quietly stacking on top of each other for the entire duration of the flight. So here's the twist, and it's the part that surprised even the researchers running these studies. Your blood alcohol concentration barely changes. What changes is how impaired you feel and act at that exact same blood alcohol number, because your brain is already compromised by low oxygen and your body is already stressed by dehydration before the alcohol has done a single thing. You are not getting more drunk in any chemical sense. You are getting hit harder by the exact same amount of drunk because your body has almost no spare capacity left to absorb the impact. Imagine a light shove to someone standing steady versus that same shove to someone already off balance. The push is identical. The outcome isn't remotely close. And this explains why it hits some people harder than others and even hits you differently flight to flight. Bored, well-rested, and hydrated, and you might barely notice a thing. Bored, exhausted, dehydrated, already running on empty from a long travel day, and one glass can knock you sideways. The plane isn't changing the alcohol. It's changing the body the alcohol is landing in. Quick pause because I genuinely think you'll want to see where this ends up, and subscribing helps more than you'd think. It takes 1 second, costs nothing, and it's the entire reason WhyLab gets to keep making videos like this one. Okay, back to 35,000 feet. This is exactly why airlines cut people off faster than any bar would. Crews have learned, through incidents like the one we opened with, that a passenger's behavior can escalate fast, even when their actual blood alcohol number would look completely unremarkable by ground standards. The person genuinely doesn't feel like they've had that much, because chemically they haven't. Their brain is just interpreting the exact same signal in a much more distorted way. On a smaller scale, it's why one glass of wine can knock you out cold for a 5-hour flight, when that same glass barely makes you drowsy on your couch. Your body isn't broken. It's running a harder shift than usual, and the drink cart hasn't even reached your row yet. And here's a genuinely useful takeaway hiding inside all of this. The two things working against you, low oxygen and dehydration, are exactly the two things you have some real control over. A full glass of water for every alcoholic drink, spaced out through the flight instead of downed all at once, directly cancels out the dehydration half of the equation. It won't fix the cabin pressure, but it removes one of the two stresses stacking on top of the alcohol. And for a lot of people, that's the entire difference between landing relaxed and landing with a hangover they never actually earned. So here's the recap. It was never really about how much you drank. It's not your blood alcohol level that changes dramatically at 35,000 feet. It's everything stacked quietly underneath it. Lower oxygen, mimicking a mountain you never chose to climb. Dehydration, worse than most deserts on Earth. And alcohol landing directly on top of both effects at once. None of it shows up on a breathalyzer. All of it shows up in how you feel, and in extreme cases, in exactly the kind of scene that opened this video. So, next time you're handed that tiny plastic cup somewhere over the ocean, remember what's actually going on underneath it. It was never really about the drink, it was about the mountain your body thinks it's standing on, and the desert it thinks it's breathing in long before the alcohol ever got a say. Same one beer, very different flight, Now you know exactly why.